New Jersey is known for its vast amount of farmland and agricultural abundance. Local organic produce can be found in almost every supermarket. However, with an increase in urbanization and the pandemic causing a food shortage, many low-income communities were left unable to access affordable, healthy, and organic produce. The one population was hit the hardest: refugees and immigrants. They make up most of the agricultural workforce in New Jersey, but are often the last to receive food justice. One small nonprofit took it upon themselves to start a farm. With the help of refugees and immigrants, they are working to help fight for food sovereignty. Here is their story.
Our mission is to ensure that refugees who come into our community, or new Americans, have access to fresh, healthy, culturally appropriate food. That is known as food sovereignty. Hi, my name is Emily Wilkes, and I'm the director of Global Grace Farms and the Food Sovereignty and Farm Coordinator with Interfaith Rise.
I had the opportunity to sit down with Emily Wilkes, the director of Global Grace Farms, and talk a little bit more about why they started a farm and how this farm is going to help them in their fight for food sovereignty.
If we back up a little bit, so Global Grace Farms is within Global Grace Ventures, which is within IRISE. And so IRISE is like a refugee resettlement agency, right? Like when people arrive, one of the first things that folks need is job skill training about like adapting to the workforce in the United States and what work life is like, because it's different from anywhere else, really. And so kind of out of that, Global Grace Cafe was born. After the cafe, the marketplace was born, and all of these kind of came out of the community, out of people who have arrived saying, new Americans who say, I think that I want to be able to share my food with people, and so they sign up to be a chef at the Global Grace Cafe, or I want to be able to share some of these bags that I've made because I'm an excellent sewist, so that's kind of how they're often born out of the community, what the community expresses. And so the farm similarly grew out of that, and there were talks of it, I think there's been some talks of it ever since the cafe had started, because of the kind of connection of farm to table, of what the cafe could be.
Unfortunately, once the pandemic hit, the farm-to-table idea quickly turned into a fight for food justice for refugees and immigrants.
So there were kind of some rumblings of this happening, and then COVID hit, and it became really apparent of how frail, how fractured the food system really is. And I think that it hit our community really hard. Our community are people who work within the food industry, within the food system, who don't have access to healthy food themselves in a lot of cases. And in talking with a lot of our clients, the food has been one of the hardest adjustments to life in the United States. Nothing tastes the same. Nothing is as flavorful. People will tell me all the time, I eat a lot of the same things that I would eat back home, like eggs, butter, but I gained so much weight here, and it's because it's so unhealthy, and they know it's so unhealthy, and they don't feel like they have any other options but to choose the milk that's WIC accessible, or go to the grocery store that is SNAP EBT eligible. And a lot of that food is just not healthy, it's not fresh, and it's not culturally appropriate. I think having this space as Global Grace Farms gives us the flexibility to, especially in our pilot year, to kind of thoroughly try to understand the needs of our community and meet them where they are, to try to adapt a specific program, adapt a specific part of land to the express needs of that community. So when people say, like, I want healthy greens, I just want access to healthy greens, like, we have that space. If people say, I want start a saffron business, then we provide some spaces for people to plant saffron and maybe like test out how saffron grows in New Jersey in the first place, because our soil is really different than soil in Afghanistan, right? Like, if people say, like, I really miss just having like an herb garden or a kitchen garden, you can be like, well, we've got like a quarter acre of space that like is available for personal plots that might not be available otherwise, right? So I think having our own space and developing our own program gives us the flexibility to be adaptive and nimble and resilient in response to the express needs of our clients. So food sovereignty is really important to our mission here. I think food sovereignty was coined at like a 2007 conference of like poor farmers from around the world. It was held in Mali in Africa. It's founded on 6 principles, all of them having to do with supporting the individuals who make up the food system, individuals who are growing the food, harvesting the food, transporting the food, selling the food, making the food, supporting each individual of a food ecosystem, and then also supporting the wider communities, so the markets and the homes and the farms, and supporting the ways that all of them are connected to each other. And then food sovereignty is also based in using ecologically sustainable methods, so passing on knowledge to future generations. Agriculture has been a system of domination. I mean, ever since colonizers first came, and like one of the first things that like the colonizers used show domination to like try to oppress indigenous communities was to refuse to allow them to continue the agricultural practices and to start tilling the land instead of, and like trying to extract all that could be extracted from it without any kind of regenerative inputs, right? And so that's a really important reason why we are trying to focus on kind of restoring indigenous food practices, because we're trying to restore the earth. Totally. So a lot of our food goes to the Global Grace Cafe, which ever since COVID hasn't been doing indoor dining, obviously. It's been making food for free, basically, for delivery. So they'll make like hundreds of meals, hot meals, and then take them out to like community centers or to people who are houseless right now, where they congregate and where they might not have access to to hot food, like a hot meal otherwise, right? And so that's been a pretty significant part of how we've been able to get our food out to vulnerable communities in central New Jersey. And then we're trying to build like a CSA. I mentioned in January we had a pilot greens delivery program with an income stratification, so people could choose what price worked for them. So people could pay $2 per pound or $8 per pound, like depending on their income level. And so the folks who are paying more are like helping to supplement the folks who maybe couldn't afford market price otherwise. And so we're trying to build on that for the growing season, and hopefully, and then part of that is like outreach as well, saying like this is like a CSA model, or community supported agriculture, is kind of a common way of trying to get healthy food to a wider variety of folks, and doing that outreach and education. That'll be a challenge for us this year, but that is our goal, to be able to offer flexible prices and still get excellent food delivered.
Yeah. Emily also shared with me other smaller projects happening around the farm, one of those being a rose garden, which is going to be managed by a local refugee who is an expert in rose gardening and other types of flowers. They've also created a composting station, which is still in its early stages, as you can see here. This will obviously give them the benefit of healthier soil and reduce the use of chemical fertilizers on the land, and obviously yay to recycling, so that's always a plus. However, one of my favorite projects is actually the small plots of land that they're going to be using to provide members of the community who don't have access to land because they're living in urban areas to be able to create and grow their own produce. And actually, one refugee decided to use this as an opportunity to do some research on his own to create more sustainable methods of farming that are cost effective and will also be something that local members of the community can do on their own.
So our farm steward, who is from Afghanistan, Mr. Loco, he went on Etsy and just searched for seeds that were sold from around the world and just requested them, right? He found these saffron bulbs look similar to ones that I had in Afghanistan, and even if they weren't exactly the same, they might have been like heirlooms from the same region.
I had a chance to sit down with Mr. Aloco to talk more about what he was doing and what motivated his research into farming. Mr. Aloco is a refugee of Afghanistan. He grew up learning how to farm from his father and grandfather. Due to the ongoing wars in Afghanistan, he was often forced to survive off what he had. So growing with his own food was crucial to his and his family's survival. Once he arrived to America, he noticed how dependent people were of obtaining their food from grocery stores. He saw how many people were left without food during the pandemic. This was a big culture shock to him. He felt inclined to do something about this. He began researching farming methods here in the US, using his knowledge from his home country to create a more sustainable, cost-effective, and healthier method of farming. He hopes that with his research, the idea of farming and growing your own food can be utilized by the community, that people can in fact sustain themselves if another global crisis occurs. Mr. Aloco believes that in the act of growing your own produce, we can create healthier, more sustainable lives. Right now, he is working on growing saffron from his country in Afghanistan here in New Jersey Oil, and hopes that this research will help him in finding out what is feasible and what isn't feasible in growing. He urges people to go outside and spend time in nature, to get your hands dirty planting a small seed, because as he put it, there is nothing that gives you more hope than watching a seed grow. So after learning all about the farm and the amazing work it's doing to fight for food sovereignty, I wanted to ask Emily one more question. What does she envision as the future of the farm?
Interesting thinking about the sustainability of this project, especially for someone like me who is not representative at all of the community we're serving. And so I think a big part of what I would really like to see happen is figuring out different training programs. And when I say training programs, I mean someone to kind of take over both the kind of farm management aspect and also the kind of event organizing, getting the word out about what's happening here. Plans to grow, at least in terms of right next door. When I think about what I want, envisioning the future of Global Grace, so many of my favorite moments have been moments of beauty and joy. So Mr. Aloco bringing kebabs that he made for a work day. And so after we all finished and we were sweaty and tired, he just served everyone kebabs, and he's an excellent cook. And so I don't know, getting to see him like so joyful and excited that he could share this with us. It was really cool to just see him like so happy, like he could be the host rather than like perpetually being the guest. A book that talks about the like colonizing mindset is to always imagine yourself as the host and never imagine yourself as the guest. And so, when people arrived in North America for the first time, they imagined themselves as the host and refused to allow indigenous people to be the ones who could welcome them and show them how, and like, be like, well, this is how we have grown our food for like hundreds, if not thousands of years, and here, let us teach you. And instead it's like, nope, we're the hosts now. This is how it's going to be for the future. And so I think for someone who's always been kind of vulnerable in a vulnerable position, to have space to flourish and be themselves, and then also bring others into that space of beauty, that's what I imagine for Global Grace. That's what I hope it will be.